Welcome to this committee meeting of the Safety and Health Committee. Today is March 8th. Our time is just about 12 after 6. Our committee is made up of, on my left, Jeff Schilling, and to my right is Mr. Bill Roselle. We have before us tonight one activity, and that has to do with an emergency operating plan. Mr. Titterington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a new thing. This is just an annual update that we need to keep current as current as possible. These are our guidelines. This is our script in the case of an emergency, and so we want to make sure that it's as accurate and up to date as possible. There have been no substantive changes to the EOP that we've had in place for decades, I guess, many years anyway. The current version has an updated organization chart, updated roster, because all of our employees are essential personnel, and there are notification chains that we go through, so we have to make sure that the right people are the ones that are identified to be notified. We've also had to update some address and phone numbers, and the all-hazard manual in the police department, which is a requirement of their certification organization, specifically addressing an active shooter scenario. We are, as the name implies, this is an important document, and we'd like to have it updated as quickly as possible, and for that reason we are asking for emergency legislation.
All right. Question?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schilling.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Titterington for sending me a copy of this on the Sunday. I sent him an email or requesting a copy, thinking he would get it Monday morning and send it to me, but we're sitting there at 3:30 in the afternoon, and 5 minutes later this thing shows up in my email box, and I really appreciate the prompt service. But I do have some questions, and I would like to refer to page, I believe it is page 27. And we are looking at the Emergency Operating Center, and on section number 4, they talk about the operational capability of the primary operations center as follows, and we talk about number 1, telephone capacity of 12 lines. And my question is, these are landlines, is that my understanding?
Well, they're voice over internet, yes. So to supplement that, though, all of our phones, or most of our phones, are on the FirstNet system. Our cell phones are on the FirstNet system. So in an emergency, the landline capacity is the landline capacity, and then in addition to that, FirstNet priority is advanced over normal cell phone coverage. So we are the first priority if there is an emergency. So we have, both modes of communication in a pinch.
Okay. My question is again, going back, we were very fortunate. Last year we had a very small tornado hit the city of Troy, but my question is, again, if we had something similar to what happened to Xenia in 1974, where there was a Category 5 tornado that was a mile high and a mile wide, obviously the landlines would be of no use because they're up on telephone poles and probably be destroyed. Mm-hmm. Very possible the cell phone towers would be knocked out. And I know later in the report they talk about, well, we also have the radio communications with the county.
911. Mm-hmm.
And the 911, and it's possible that 911 system, their tower out there on Experiment Farm could be knocked down, and I mean, it could be a mess. So my question is that would the city be any benefit, or does the city own any satellite telephones?
No, we don't own any satellite.
Because those typically the only thing that work when there's nothing else are satellite telephones.
Well, depending on the event, they may work, they may not, because of any kind of cloud cover or any atmospheric changes or anything that's going on. So depending on the kind of event that we have, you may not get as good a coverage anyway from a satellite.
Okay, I'm just, trying to make sure we've got enough redundancy in the system that something, if we have to communicate with somebody, we've got the capability of doing it.
Sure. And I can tell you that we work very closely with the county and the state emergency operations folks. So they have a lot of input in all of the local EOPs, including ours. And so this passed their test when we took it to them and we show them what we have. So they make a lot of the recommendations that are in here, and satellite is not one that comes up.
Okay, I'm just curious on that part. Okay, then the other one, in section 4B, we talk about an alternate power source. And you say you have a 540 horsepower generator inside the police station. And my question is that we service that generator regularly? Okay, and I have a story to tell, and that's why one of the things that was interesting. My dad was a manager of the JCPenney stores, and he took a transfer from Troy to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and they have a lot of snow and ice, and a lot of stuff goes up and down the coast there. And so when they built that mall store, they put a generator in there, and they had an operation manual very similar, what the city has, and that said a certain time every couple of months you fire that thing up, make sure it runs. So I'm assuming we do the same thing.
We do it more frequently than every couple of months.
Okay.
Actually, we've got emergency generators at the EOP, the police department. We have one behind Hobart Arena. We have one at each of the 2 treatment plants. We have a generator at the well fields. So we have multiple generators, and they are exercise tested routinely, if not once a week, then once a month at a minimum.
Great, because the problem with his was that they went on for years and never had any problems, and then when the problem came up, they went down and fired up that generator, and it ran for 3 minutes. And the reason it ran for 3 minutes is that in the operating manual, nobody said you had to check the fuel the fuel container, so they ran out of fuel in 3 minutes. They'd been firing that thing up and never filled up the fuel tank. So again, we've got that covered, right?
We do.
Yes. Okay. I'm not quite through this thing. I'm on page 100 or something, but I'll get it done before council gets back together. Thank you again for sending me that. Okay.
Mr. Rozell, anything?
No, sir.
I just have a question or an interest in something. While I have been on council, as a group, we've never gotten an information or a report dealing with operative plans from our first responders. I'm just suggesting that in some way, a very general form, not in detail, because some in detail could mess up the procedures. There are some people who might like to know the in detail that could inhibit the outcome. But if we had a general highlight report, because you guys have done a lot of work. As Jeff was alluding to the 100 and some pages of material that he got, I think it's important that our community understand that our administrators and our department chairs and staff do in fact have plans in works and working to protect us. And secondly, have we ever or would it ever be possible in the newspaper or in some way, shape, or form to have small snippets of safety course or safety plans in case of flooding? One, in case of wind damage, lines down. You know, the variety of situations we might face. not in-depth, but kind of a primer course that could be of value for our community people. That's it. Questions?
Okay.
Council members who are here, do you have any questions that you might like to ask at this time? None? So, this is to be emergency.
Yes, please.
Mr. Schiller.
Let's go for it.
Move forward,
For
move
emergency.
forward, move forward, unanimous,
As emergency.
Yep.
with emergency. Is there anything else? If not,
No, sir.